On today's episode of the Locked On Texans podcast, it's time to wrap it up. When we get to training camp, what does competition actually look like? And post-draft preparation for the Houston Texans. They're saving money. Where is it going?
You are Locked On Texans, your daily podcast on the Houston Texans. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Battle Red Nation, and welcome to this Friday episode of the Locked On Texans podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We are your credential media members. I'm John Hickman on the other side of the screen, or if you're listening on the other side of your earbud, Brian Big Sarge Barfield. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day. On today's episode, we'll dive into the McNair speaking. What's next for the Houston Texans? Will they find a new home, or will they just get a makeover at the NRG Stadium? This is a continuation conversation from about a month and a half ago that we had about what's next for their playing situation post-draft, and I probably should have added late free agency signings and preparations. You know, Houston still working the salary cap, still restructuring contracts, but eventually, where will that money go? I know they got to get ready for the draft, but also free agents that are still out there. We kick off today's show looking at just kind of an early prediction of what training camp will look like in terms of competition. We've talked about it all week, Sarge. Competition. But who should get first team reps, second team reps, and just overall, what is our expectation for a lot of the newcomers here in Houston? Big Sarge.
John Hickman, greetings and salutations.
Take it over.
Look, John, I know that one thing that I've said on this show repeatedly to the fans, viewers, and listeners is that I don't want Nick Caserio to sit back and stand on the end of the field and watch what happened last season. And that's watching that offensive line unit struggle against a very, very good defensive line unit that just kept rotating in and out. But when you don't have Laramie Tunsil for the majority of training camp, when you don't have Titus Howard for the majority of training camp, you're getting a Kenyon Green coming back who's still getting acclimated to being out for over a year. You got Juice Scruggs, you got Jared Patterson, you got a rookie in Blake Fisher. Like, you have these, you know, you had the offensive line unit that did not know exactly what they were going to be, and then we seen what they ended up being. But during training camp, Titus Howard and Laramie Tunsil didn't take a lot of snaps. Shaq Mason didn't take a lot of snaps. And so, I've said on here that Nick Caserio can't allow that. But then I start thinking, John, if people were upset and mad that Laramie and Titus and Shaq didn't practice last year, what do they expect from Trent Brown, who is 31 years old, coming off a patella tendon tear, correct?
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken. So he only played in 3 games. What are you expecting from him? Since we're talking about, you know, every time I turn around, I'm hearing competition, which isn't a bad thing. That could be that's a good thing. But you got to have the bodies on the field in order to have the competition. And if this guy's coming off of a major injury and didn't have a lot of playing time last season, if he's coming off of this amount, of this long period of missed time, then what you expect from him in training camp? And if he's trying to get back acclimated to playing, how much do you stress him out? Also, Cam Robinson, who has had injury issues in the past when he's with Jacksonville, I think he messed up both of his knees, and then he had another injury scare. I don't think that he had one last season, but he's still an older guy. He's been in the league for 9 years now. I think he came in 2017, if I'm not mistaken. And so he's older. He's gone through those type of injuries. How much do you expect him to practice? I know that Laken Tomlinson is an Iron Man when it comes to being on the field. I know that he's played in a lot.
Availability.
Yeah. He's been there, but I mean, he's also an older offensive lineman. So how much are these guys gonna practice? How many reps are they gonna be able to take in training camp? Because one of the things that was brought up, one of the biggest complaints was Titus don't practice, Laramie don't practice, Shaq don't practice. And so now you got 3 new guys in there. Like I said, I can see Tomlinson, maybe being able to push through because he has been through it, but he's older. But what do you expect from Cam Robinson, and what do you expect from Trent Brown, especially when you got players like Blake Fisher and Juice Scruggs and Jared Patterson, and whoever rookies you're going to draft, who's going to be, ready, available, and looking for reps?
Yeah, my expectation is they will be on the field if their bodies are able to allow them to be on the field. And you look at Trent Brown. I'm even going to throw in Sheldon Rankins because he got hurt last season and missed the rest of the season. But speaking to the offensive line room, you got Trent Brown, you got Cam Robinson, new faces in new places. Their injury history is well documented, right? But it's kind of different because Laramie practiced when he first got to Houston.
Yeah.
This was Titus would practice, when he was a rookie and still fighting for that contract.
Yeah.
Shaq got to Houston, he practiced, and then Houston probably just took over in terms of the atmosphere and culture. But overall, like they kind of had, and it's unfair to the organization probably to say this, but they kind of already had their way, especially Titus. Y'all just extended me twice. What y'all gonna do? Trade me? That happened. Yeah. And so like now the void needs to be filled. And when you're pouring into that void, you kind of want to, like when you make noodles, you kind of have to, what's the word I'm looking for? Strain them out.
Yeah.
The bad habits, the bad qualities.
Yeah.
And so Cam, Trent, Tomlinson, Ed Ingram, those guys are going to come in. Those guys are all on 1-year deals. Those guys are all, they have an uncertain future compared to Laramie, Titus, Shaq Mason when he first got here. Like their future was solidified. Kenyon Green was on their rookie deal, so for a couple of years, his future was solidified. You were going to be in Houston. Trent Brown may not make the roster, so he needs to practice. He needs to be out there because if he doesn't,
they got him started some projections. John, didn't we read it? Like they got him projected to start.
Yeah, and that's still crazy to me. But what I mean is like he's on a 1-year, $3 million deal. He can make up to $3 million. Compared to Laramie, I'm finna get my 25. I'm finna get my 27. Compared to like last year with Titus, I'm gonna get my nearly 20 million, if not over there a little bit. Compared to Kenyon Green, I'm on a rookie deal. Y'all still trying to figure me out. So like these guys that are coming into Houston right now, they don't have the benefit of the money. They don't have the benefit of the stability. They don't have the benefit of the familiarity. They have to be out on that field. And I really think that is a good thing for Houston. I think especially last year, and I mean especially last year. Sarge, you can attest to this. Cody Davis can attest to this. I've had conversations with Stan. I've had conversations with Cole. I would talk about where are these guys? Why are they not on the field? And ultimately, at the end of the year, Thompson's gone. The uncertainty about Titus Howard's future, Shaq Mason release, Kenyon Green in Philly. And so
that's not fair though, John.
It's not fair to Green. It's not fair to Kenyon, but
Titus and Laramie was hurt. That's why they weren't practicing a lot. They were hurt.
And I also want to add to that, they were able to play through a season. So that off-season time, to be fair, that was their time to kind of rev up, get themselves back together. I think Laramie had surgery last off-season to clean up some things with his knee. Now, compared to Trent Brown, you went down in week 3 of the 24 season. So you didn't have to compete and go through the rigorous training and games for the entire season and playoffs. Cam Robinson, you're still coming into a new situation, so you need to be out on the field. So I still look at it like those guys are coming in still like, I'm saying like a lot, so guys forgive me, but they are coming in. They didn't finish the season for some of them. They didn't get all of the reps that they maybe wanted to get. And Titus and Laramie still had the benefit of the contract, and that played in their favor.
John, I just look at it like this. And like I said, I don't want people to take this the wrong way. I don't want them to think that, hey, Sarge just don't want these guys. No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it's uncertainty with those guys. And John, you mentioned noodles. You can use the water for noodles twice. Now, It may not be, John, it may not be as effective, right? Or you could boil a hot dog in the same water You can boil hot dogs in the same hot dog water. It's not, listen.
Luckily, Locked On pays us well enough to not have to do those things.
But listen, boiling hot dogs in the same water, the water is not going to be effective, and it's not going to get it done as quickly as it did the first time, but maybe the second time around it could be. So, I mean, this could be, second use hot dog water with some of these guys coming in. It may not be, they may not be as effective as they would be the first time, but you can still use the water. It may take a little bit more time, but as long as you get the hot dog cooked at the end, I guess. I mean, because that's how I look at it, John. I mean, I'm like, Cam Robinson is not Cam Robinson when he first came into the league. Trent Brown isn't the Trent Brown of who he was when he still came to the league. And no matter the amount of money that you're paying them, they're still on your roster. They're still coming into a situation where you are required to play and compete. And if you don't, you'll be sitting on the bench. We talked about Kenyon Green. Kenyon Green got pulled and benched for ineffectiveness, not just because he was injured. He got pulled, and then Kendrick Green got hurt, and they had to put him back into the game. I think that wasn't it last season, John, where they replaced Kenyon Green with I forgot who, and then he got a concussion on the second play
when they scored a touchdown on the drive, and it was a touchdown drive. Yeah, that was. We was at that game, I believe.
I can't remember the offensive lineman name, but anyway, John, I feel like you're gonna have to take your time with these guys as well, and like, how is that going to work with them learning a new system, coming into a new situation, playing with a new quarterback?
Well, new system for not for Trent Brown. I mean, he was around for Cole and Kaylee, so he had some expectations. Cam Robinson kind of played in somewhat of a similar style offense in Minnesota because of the McVay and O'Connell connection. So I think there'll be some familiarity there. Ed Ingram as well. So I think those guys have an advantage there. But again, I do think this is just a hungrier group. Yeah. This is a group that still, like, unless they have plans to retire next season, they still want to make some more money for their families and make some more money for themselves.
True.
And they're all on one-year deals. And so I think that's really why it plays into the favor of both the Texans and the players. Hungry makes hungry, and the expectation of let's be great together. Now we got to talk about any late free agent signings and post-draft preparations. The money is out there. Where will it go? March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet. That's 200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories, even who's cutting down the nets at the end of the tourney. So if you got your eye on some underdogs this year, FanDuel makes it easy to back them with spreads, totals, and game props. With tournament games happening almost every day, there's always something exciting to bet on. And the FanDuel app is simple to use, so when you win, you get paid instantly. Ain't no waiting around. It ain't no 3 to 5 business days. You win right then, you get your money right then. So visit FanDuel.com right now and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. And again, use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Welcome back in, Locked On Texans listeners and viewers. It's Friday. Have a good weekend, first and foremost. Like, we talk Texans each and every day, but let's all have a good weekend. Shout out to the who? Stros. 1-0.
What does your shirt say?
Check out Locked On Astros. Sarge. Gotta shout out the Astros.
Oh, yeah, man. Hey, look, great game on Thursday, and Cam Smith is going to be everything as advertised. He won't be Kyle Tucker just yet, but he will be. Locked On Astros. Make sure y'all locked in over there.
Check them out. Now, the Houston Texans still in the process, according to some sources, of restructuring contracts. Have already restructured contracts. I think right now the current cap space available for Houston is sitting just under $16 million. And last year, Houston got involved in active late in free agency and post-draft. You look at Jerry Hughes, Cameron Irvin, Dare Ogunbowale, Jacob Phillips. Those were some guys that either came back over free agents. They got active late by trading for Stephon Diggs. I think it was like week 3 of free agency, which is what we're about to go into. So Houston is creating an opportunity for themselves to either still dive into free agency right now or wait until after the draft until they're able to kind of fill out some of their needs from the younger guys on some of those rookie contracts.
John, I think that you and I talked about this on the show earlier this week, and when you look at it coming up, and I know we're talking about the post draft preparation and what they're going to be able to do post draft, correct?
Yeah, post draft and also just late free agents that are out there.
But real quickly, John, I want to throw this in here before I talk about that. You remember when I said, "Hey, man, these guys' pro days are going to." These guys who are having these pro days now at their colleges and universities is going to really, really boost up their draft stock and their draft status, and a lot of them are going to get taken, get a look at. And you remember I said that I felt like Nick Caserio and D'Amico Ryans when they were at the University of Texas, where everybody's looking at Matthew Golden and Kelvin Banks, they had their eyes maybe on Isaiah Bond, somebody that they could get in a late round. And now all of a sudden, I don't know if you noticed this or not, but now the hype is around Isaiah Bond. And so
I'm glad.
Yeah.
He's getting that hype.
And so I preface my statement to say this. That's a good thing for the Houston Texans, though, because that's going to constantly be the theme going throughout the rest of this period before the draft. Because every time someone has a pro day, then they're going to be their draft status is going to move up. The draft stock is going to move up and up and up. And now, while those guys are looking over here, maybe they're, say they're at Oregon Pro Day, and while they're over there looking at this, they've forgotten about the University of Michigan's Pro Day. And now Nick Caserio and his scouts and D'Amico Ryans could be like, okay, now that they shifted their focus here, we can still look at different players here. Some of these guys are going to drop off and a lot of it has to do with need to, because the one thing that I've looked at, John, the one thing that I've seen, especially when I'm looking at a lot of these mock drafts and listen to a lot of these NFL analysts and experts is, John, every team needs, well, let me take that back. Every team except maybe the Eagles and the Ravens, what the Ravens made, but I know the Eagles, like every team, it needs offensive linemen and they need offensive line depth. And that's what I fear for the Houston Texans when it comes to this draft, because who are you going to be able to get that you could potentially make a day one starter or is going to compete for a spot in training camp that somebody else that has offensive line needs don't already take. And
so are you looking at it from a perspective of they need to still address the offensive line early in the draft for Houston?
John, I'm still under the belief that they need to address the wide receiver position first. But, as time goes on and as we continue to get closer and closer to the NFL draft, I can just see him like, okay, because they may be able to get a wide receiver later in the draft. They definitely need, just like in the last segment, we just talked about these guys they picked up in free agency. They need offensive line help. They need offensive line depth. But like I said, there's a lot of other teams that need that too, John. Now, we're talking about after the draft. I think that the Houston Texans won't fully know what they'll be able to get to after the cuts are made after training camp, because there may be some players that will be on the chopping block for some of these NFL teams that'll be available for the Houston Texans to sign and pick up. And even if it is just at depth, or, to be able to have somebody to rotate in and out on that offensive line. I think that there may be, John, there's always one or two players out there that you think, oh, man, I don't know if they could, their team says, I don't know if they can get it done. And then they get cut and they go be, somebody else's, gym. They go from being the ugly duckling to the prize of the prom. And so when I say that, you can look at what's the linebacker's name from that played 1 year with the Eagles that made all pro and now he just got paid.
Zach Braun.
Where did he come from? The Saints, if I'm not mistaken.
The Saints.
I mean, he was the ugly duckling there. He gets to Philly, and all of a sudden he becomes king of the prom. And so that could be somebody out there like that for the Houston Texans after training camp goes. But as of now, I can't see anybody that can go out there and get unless they're going to make a trade in order to fulfill the needs.
A few more late free agent signings for Houston last year. Just looking at the trends, Derek Barnett played a huge role for Houston's defense this year. Neville Hewitt, Miles Bryant, and again traded for Stephon Diggs on April 4th. So, like Houston, they'll be active. In April, they'll be active. Still looking at the market. Still looking to see who's out there. Which
real
is a
quickly,
good thing.
John. Real quickly. If they make another trade for a wide receiver, right? If they make another trade for a wide receiver before the draft, would you say go all in, like the first 3 picks on offensive linemen?
Each one?
Yeah.
Nah, Bob. No.
At least 2. The first 2?
No. I would go.
And I'm asking. I'm asking.
No, I would go best, but it would depend on who they trade for. They could trade something late for a receiver, and that receiver is just a good piece, but is he going to be the piece that get them over the top? I wouldn't go all 3 though, and I think that's
they trade for Olave. Now what?
Then my first pick would probably be either an offensive line or like we talked about on Thursday's show. If you got any run defense concerns, some young guys out there that could fit. And we're seeing Nolan going the first round, Grant going the first round. So it could go in that option. Olave would be a good fit in Houston. I would really like that. So, but I wouldn't go all 3. No.
Okay. No, like I said, I'm just asking because if you can address the wide receiver need before you get to the draft, now the only glaring problem that you have is offensive line.
You go best offensive line. So let's say they trade for Olave, and it has to be Olave or someone of that caliber. Garrett Wilson. I really like Drake London and how he's been able to grow in his game in Atlanta, but I doubt that they trade him because
they lose draft picks too, though, John, when they make these trades. So remember, now the draft picks shrink.
No, I get it, but I think Drake London is going to be for Penix, what Nico Collins was for CJ Stroud, and vice versa. So it would have to be at least a tier 2 receiver for me to say that, okay, 25, either go BPA or best offensive lineman available. But then that second pick, I'd probably go D lineman. That third pick, I'd probably, because they have 2 third-round picks, I'd probably explore, getting another offensive weapon like a running back, or maybe we don't know what the shakeup is going to be for tight end. So I wouldn't go offensive line. I wouldn't do that.
You're not going to have that pick though, like unless
that's right. So it'll be
you won't have the third round.
So Olave probably would have to go for a second round. So it'll be first and then third. Yeah. And then I do want to add that Houston right now could still be filling out their rosters. And teams and agents, they work together. So, they probably have spoken with players, agents with interest, with plans to just say, we're interested, but let's circle back with the intent to maybe circle back and sign players late free agency or after the draft to, fill any position of need with some young guys. And also that approach could allow for the market to dictate the APY contracts for some of the available free agents out there, which could play in Houston's favor in terms of projected salary they'd have to offer. And that's something that Nick Caserio preaches all the time, value, contract, and the player and where they are right now. Some available free agent receivers out there that Houston could benefit from. Keenan Allen is a name.
No.
They're all old, though. Mark Cooper, Deontay Johnson, he's never coming back. Tyler Lockett, no. Nelson Aguilar, no. Tyler Boyd, maybe.
Why are you even wasting your time reading these names? They are nobody that the Houston Texans would want.
Tyler Lockett is different. Now, he's not different. He's not like, let me not say that. Tyler Lockett could benefit Houston's offense. I will say that.
I am a Tyler Lockett fan. I like Tyler Lockett, everything that he stands for as far as on the field and off the field, especially, with his faith. Johnny's old. Like, there's a reason why Seattle didn't want him anymore. John, those names that you just named are players that team didn't want. They ain't asking for trades. They're not asking to lead a team. But I got one more curveball I want to throw at you before we leave this topic.
So let's bring it back on the other side. Let's go to break and bring it back on the other side. We got more Locked On Texans on the way.
Welcome back, Locked On Texans fans and viewers, and thank you for making the Locked On Texans podcast your first listen of the day. We're part of the Locked On Network, your team every day. John, before we went to the break, we were just, throwing out little different scenarios, talking about free agent availability as far as wide receivers are concerned. We talked some pre-draft, some post-draft, and I said I wanted to propose a question to you. So I want to get this question out of the way real quick. John, if a team says, all right, we'll trade you this wide receiver, but you have to give us a draft pick and a player, and say that player is Titus Howard, right? Now you make that trade and you give up a draft pick and you give up Titus Howard, right? And this is hypothetically speaking, you give up Titus Howard, right? So now you have your second wide receiver. Now, does that change your mind going into the draft as far as what your first two picks are going to be?
It depends on the actual player. So to keep the conversation going, let's just say it's Chris Olave.
Right.
Who I'm sure is going to want an extension soon. I don't know what New Orleans salary cap looks like. So Houston would trade a second round, or maybe that first third round, because Olave is coming off injury, and Titus Howard, who Houston restructured his contract. His base salary this year, I think it's $1.83 million. If I'm off a few, forgive me. They converted his salary into a signing bonus, so he's paid. And they want to, so Titus and one of those picks. Would I make the trade?
Pick in a late, early pick in this year's draft and a late pick in next year's draft
for Olave?
Yeah. We're on an audio broadcast.
Because essentially my question back to you, and this will be to everybody, what would Olave bring that Emeka Egbuka can't? Playing experience in the NFL, that's number one, of course.
That's what I was about to say. Right. NFL experience. I think that
Caserio has made some trades and have given up some picks, and sometimes they've come back to bite them. So with this new offense, with the expectation of the offense, I would trade for Olave. Let's not get it wrong. I'll trade for Olave from Houston, but the asking price can't be too steep, especially for a receiver that's coming off, not finishing the season. And that could be a draft day trade, because if they have an opportunity to get a Golden or a Mecca, can they bring you the same value in this offense, which we're projected to see, that we think Olave can?
John, you better be glad we got to move on, because I got another one for you, but I know we have to move on, and maybe we could bring this back on a weekend edition, because I got one for you. I got a heater, but we're going to hold that one.
I think you know what? We have to start exploring options for Houston moving forward, because this is a ready-made now team in a lot of areas, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Like, they ready to go. They ready to carry you to the promised land. They were last year. They were held up by the offense. So if you can add a weapon like I like Olave. It's just the asking price can't be too crazy.
I don't think, me,
because Houston is going to have to extend him too. They ain't going to do the Stephon Diggs thing again. Way it's just we ain't going to have no security.
All right, and John, listen, when we do, when we do our next episode, and maybe we can write this down. I would go so far as to say, if New York says we're willing to trade Garrett Wilson, you just got to give us picks and Blake Fisher. Don't answer that right now. The McNair speak. What's next for Houston, John? Hey, don't answer that right now. Do not answer that. They need to come back for that. John, we can't give them too much on this edition.
let's talk about the McNair speaking off the field. This is from Kyle McNair, who's really become one of my favorite guys in this organization. Now he's bounced back from adversity. So shout out to Cal, shout out to Miss Hannah, shout out to the McNair family. Off the field, there have been several articles written in recent weeks about the future of NRG Stadium. Although we are 7 years away from the expiration of our release, I want you to know that we are working collaboratively,
collaboratively. Collaboratively.
I want you to know that we are working collaboratively. I'm messing this word up, guys. I'm sorry. And
diligently. Raw Ray.
Don't do that. We're gonna have
the HISD education.
The Houston Livestock Show in Rodeo and Harris County to identify the best path forward. With those partners, we have conducted a number of studies and continue to learn more about what we need to be successful in the future under the leadership of our new team president, Mike Tomlin, who has extensive history in developing and renovating stadiums. We support a renovation of NRG Stadium and are committed to exploring all potential solutions to ensure long-term success. We want to ensure we have a world-class facility that provides a competitive advantage for our team and a great experience for our fans while standing tall as a community asset. Ultimately, with our value partners, our goal is to find a solution that works for all stakeholders involved, where everyone feels like a winner. Thank you for your continued support of our team as we embark on the 2025 season altogether. That does sound like I don't know how much longer they're going to be at the NRG Stadium, Sarge.
Hey, look, I'm all for it, John. I'm all for them moving away from NRG. And don't get me wrong, I think that NRG is a nice stadium. I just think that NRG is an old stadium, and unless the Houston Sports Authority, I think they're the ones that run it, either Houston Sports Authority or the city, well, whoever's over it, unless they're willing to have a major overhaul and revamp that entire stadium, then if I'm the McNairs, I'm looking at something state of the art, something that I can, something that I can that I own and that I run. Because you remember, John, when the hurricane came through, the panels were missing at the top, and the McNairs couldn't do nothing about it because they're not the ones who own the stadium. They're not the ones who maintain the stadium. It
puts their back against the wall, because although they're not the owners of the stadium, they are the owners of the team, and they are one of the faces of the team, especially in recent years. And so I could really see them kind of, to me, making a decision to say, if you guys are not going to fully commit to what our goal is for this franchise, because that franchise word holds a lot of weight, then we are going to seriously consider moving on, and they will act diligently. I still messed that word up.
Diligently. Golly, HISD. I graduated from HISD school too. So, but John, here's my thing though. Here's my thing. If I'm the McNairs, I'm going and I'm saying, okay, y'all got to poop or get off the pot, because we're gonna have to get this thing together. John, they're next door to the Astrodome that the city still don't know what to do with. They're still that old antiquated stadium that if you cut the lights on, ain't no telling what's on the inside of that stadium. They still haven't figured out how to do that. Now, if I'm the McNairs, I'm saying, all right, if y'all want me to stay here, first you got to tear this thing down. Go ahead and get rid of it, demolish it, get rid of it, and let us build something around that. John, they need to put some type of entertainment center around NRG Stadium if that's where they're going to continue to be. Tear down the Astrodome and make that something else. It doesn't have to be like a carnival or something, but make it attractive to whereas people want to come there, and after the game, they can migrate over to this entertainment center and continue to party or whatever the case may be. And that way you're getting that full, you're getting that full entertainment value. Yeah, so
and that's the opportunity for them to look at it and say, hey, we're gonna that's gonna go back into the favor of Houston, because now we have Houstonians working. Now we have we're helping pump money into the Houston economy. So
And now's the time to strike, John, because they have a good franchise. Now is the time to
that was my next thing to say. Like when you have if CJ pans out,
yeah,
you don't want to have CJ playing in no hoopty, man. You don't want him. You don't want.
It's like putting speakers in your mama car.
Escalade to be in the projects. You don't want that. So
you heard me?
Absolutely.
That says like putting speakers in your mama car.
You don't want that. Not in the van. Not in the van. Thank y'all for watching today's episode of the Locked On Texans podcast. Please be sure to subscribe, like, and comment.
Oh, you also went to Lamar.
To the Locked On Texans podcast on YouTube and wherever you listen to your podcast. Also follow me on Twitter at John_Hickman12. It's been a long week, y'all, and I work in corporate, so I can say the word. I don't know what's going on tonight, but Sarge.
And make sure that you're following me on the app formerly known as Twitter at Big Sarge Sports with the Z at the end. Probably got a lot to do with your shirt.
They can't see my shirt. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, have a great weekend. Peace.